There is a letter sitting on a kitchen table somewhere in America this morning. 2 pages, single-spaced, very polite. It is the reason a man is about to pay out of pocket to fix a roof he did not damage. It did not come from his insurance company. It came from his neighbor's insurance company. And what it says, underneath the courtesy language, is that their insured did nothing wrong, that no liability attaches to him, and that they will not be paying for the damage he reported. The damage he reported was a red oak. It stood in the neighbor's backyard the better part of 60 years, came over in a windstorm on a Tuesday night, and landed across the back half of his roof, took out a run of fence on the way down, and clipped the corner of his shed. Most people read a letter like that exactly once. Their stomach drops, they put it in a drawer, and they get quietly angry at a man they have to keep waving at every morning. Almost nobody reads it the way I read letters like that for 30 years, which is slowly, with a pen, hunting for the one sentence that tells you what actually happened inside the file. Because there is one sentence in this letter that most people read as the bad news. And it is actually the sentence that tells you exactly which of the 2 policies was ever going to pay, and why the whole thing was decided weeks before the storm. I will come back to it. So that is where we start. Not at the storm, at the letter. This claim is already dead, and the useful question is not whether that is fair. The useful question is where it died. I spent about 30 years on the claims side, across storm-heavy parts of this country, and I have seen this exact file more times than I can count. Tree comes down, lands on the wrong house, and 2 carriers spend 6 weeks deciding which one of them is holding the bag while the homeowner sits under a tarp. So let us do what I used to do with a file like this. Open it at the end and work backward. The letter, then the adjuster, then the first phone call, then the morning after the storm. Somewhere in there is one decision point where this was lost. And I will tell you now, it is not the one you think. Here is the part that surprises almost everybody. So I want it said plainly before we go near any fine print. In most states, when a tree falls from natural causes, it is a claim against the property it lands on, not against the property it grew on. Read that again. The tree was his. The roof is yours. Your policy is the one that responds. The Texas Department of Insurance says it about as flatly as a government agency ever says anything. Your neighbor is not responsible for acts of nature. The Iowa Insurance Division tells its residents the same thing in different words, that when a neighbor's tree comes down on your property, your own homeowner's insurance may cover it, and you will be paying your deductible. So there is the answer to the question on the front of this video: whose problem is the neighbor's tree? Yours, almost always yours, which raises the right question. If it is always yours, why does the neighbor's carrier ever pay anybody at all? There is a door. Let me show you the door. Quick thing before I show you what to do. If you own a home, this is the stuff I wish somebody had handed me 30 years ago, instead of letting me find out the hard way. Hit subscribe, and I'll walk you through one of these every week. The mistakes I watched cost people the most. All right, here's the fix. Except the fix will not make sense until you understand why that letter said what it said. So we go back to the file. The door is negligence. The neighbor's policy pays where somebody can show he was careless, and careless with trees has a specific shape. Generally, it means the tree was demonstrably dead, or diseased, or hazardous, and the owner knew, or should have known, and did nothing about it. The American Bar Association's own writing on tree liability puts it plainly. A tree owner is liable when he knew, or reasonably should have known, that the tree was diseased, decayed, or otherwise a dangerous condition. And the decay has to be visible, apparent, the kind of thing a man standing in the yard could see. He has no duty to constantly check every tree, and where a healthy tree comes down in a storm, no liability lands on him. Now I have to slow down because this is where people get in trouble. This varies by policy and state, so check yours. But in most standard policies, the carrier is hunting for that notice element, and the law underneath it varies more than almost anything else I talk about. A legal update out this year covers 4 neighboring jurisdictions: the District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia, and Delaware. 4 places that share borders, 4 different standards. Maryland generally does not hold an owner liable for a natural condition of his land with a tighter duty in urban areas and says owners are not liable for acts of God or weather events. Virginia has been described as requiring actual or constructive notice, with no general duty to inspect and cut down sickly trees. The district holds a landowner to common prudence. Delaware asks whether the harm was reasonably foreseeable. 4 borders, 4 answers. I cannot tell you your state's rule, and neither can anybody on the internet who has not read it. But all 4 have the same hinge in them, and the hinge is one word: notice. Hold on to it. All right? Into the policy itself, because this is where the money actually goes missing, and it is not where people expect. A standard homeowner's policy, the one the industry calls HO3, is not one pot of money. It is 4 buckets. Your house is one, your fence and shed and detached garage are a different one, your belongings a third, living somewhere else while it is fixed, a fourth. That second bucket is the one that gets people. In the standard form, the other structure's limit is 10% of the limit that applies to the dwelling, and the reference books say the same, 10% for all other structures combined. Combined. That is the word that does the damage. Fence, shed, detached garage, driveway, all in line for one slice, and the slice is 1/10 of the house number. Then there is the tree itself, and I will be honest with you, this is the line I never liked explaining on somebody's porch. Getting the tree off the house and getting the tree out of the yard are 2 different lines, and the second is a much smaller number than people expect. In the standard form, removal of a fallen tree is not part of the repair at all. It is a small stated allowance. The form language pays reasonable expense up to $1,000 in any one loss, no matter how many trees came down, and no more than $500 for any one tree. The Insurance Information Institute puts the same range from the outside. Go look at your own declarations page for your number, because that page governs you, not the sentence I just read out loud. One more, and this one is almost cruel. The standard form carries a separate coverage for your own trees and shrubs, up to 5% of the dwelling limit, $500 for any one tree. Sounds generous. Then you read the perils: fire, lightning, explosion, riot, aircraft, vehicles, vandalism, theft. Wind is not on that list. The coverage for your trees does not cover the thing that knocks trees down, and every line of it sits behind your deductible. Your deductible on a loss you did not cause, from a tree you did not plant, in a storm you did not order. That is the arithmetic. Let me stack it, because separately these are annoyances and stacked, they are something else. At the start, it looks like an inconvenience. A tarp, a few phone calls, a neighbor who will not meet your eye at the mailbox. Then the estimate comes back, and it turns into money. The deductible, gone. Fence and shed coming out of that 10th-sized bucket. Removal capped at an allowance nowhere near what a crane and a crew charge to lift 60 feet of oak off a roofline. And I have watched that gap land on people in a driveway with the crew already parked. Then there is the part where you are not even a participant. Your carrier pays you, then goes after his carrier if it thinks it can prove he was careless. That is subrogation. You are not in that fight. You just watch it happen, and your deductible rides on it. Washington's regulation requires the insurer to include the insured's deductible in its subrogation demands and to allocate any recovery first to the insured. Good rule. It only matters if the subrogation succeeds, and subrogation succeeds on negligence. So all of it, the roof, the fence, the shed, the removal, your deductible coming back or never coming back, walks backward to one question. Did anybody ever tell that neighbor, in writing, that his tree was dying? And if you have ever had the feeling that the whole thing is built on the bet that you will not read the policy and will not take the photo, you are not imagining it. That is exactly what it is built on. Let me put a face on it and be straight about what it is. This is a composite, not one man's file. It is the version I saw most often, which is more useful anyway. Call him Ray. Good house, good roof, and a neighbor with a big oak sitting maybe 15 feet off the property line. Now we run it backward. At the end of it, Ray has the letter. No liability, no payment. Before the letter, a different piece of paper from his own carrier. A reservation of rights letter. People panic when one lands, so let me be clear. It is not a denial. It is the carrier telling you in writing that it has not decided, and that it is keeping every door open while it looks. It is a signal that somebody has questions. Before that, a recorded statement. Ray gave one cheerfully, because he had nothing to hide, and he genuinely did not. But a recorded statement is not a conversation. It is a document that happens to be spoken, and it gets read back later next to everything else in the file. And in the middle of his, Ray said what everybody says. That tree had looked bad for years. Hold that one. Before the statement, a phone call. The first notice of loss. On the face of every file I ever opened, 2 dates sit at the top. The day it happened and the day you called. The distance between them is the first thing a reviewer sees. Ray's gap ran 4 days, 3 of them spent getting a tarp up and arguing about whose problem this was. Before the phone call, a Tuesday night and a storm and a sound, and before all of it, about 2 years in which everybody on that street could see that tree was dying, and every person involved, Ray included, did nothing about it in writing. That is the decision point, not the storm. Before I show you what to do with that, I owe you the other side, because if all I ever tell you is that the process is stacked against you, you should stop believing me. This rule is not a trick. It is fair, and I would defend it. If a man were liable every time a healthy tree came down in a windstorm, nobody in this country could afford to own a tree. And it cuts both ways, because your trees can come down on his house just as easily. And on that night, he is holding this letter, and you are the one it protects. Fair in both directions. And I never had a problem with it. What is not fair is that almost nobody finds out how it works until the week they need it. Which brings us back to the letter. I told you one sentence in there tells you the whole story. Here is why. A denial letter has to tell you which line of the policy or which principle it is standing on. That varies by state, so check your own rules. But plenty of states carry a claims practices rule saying it outright. Rhode Island says, no insurer shall deny a claim on the grounds of a specific provision, condition, or exclusion unless reference to it is included in the denial in writing. That cited line is the whole argument, printed right there for you, for free. So look at what this letter is standing on. It is standing on negligence. It says, their insured was not negligent. And negligence, as we just established, is notice. Knew or should have known and did nothing, which means that letter is not about the storm at all. That letter is the neighbor's carrier saying, in the politest language available, that nobody ever put our guy on notice about that tree. And they were right. Nobody did. Ray knew. The whole street knew. He said it out loud, on tape, that the tree had looked bad for years. But knowing it and saying it after the fact is worth nothing. There was no letter, no email, no text with a date on it, nothing that put that neighbor on notice, in writing, while the tree was still standing. So this file was not decided on that Tuesday night. It was decided across the 2 years before it, on every day that nobody wrote anything down. The storm did not lose this claim. The silence did. Which brings me to the one thing I want you to do, and you can do it this week, and it costs you a stamp. If there is a tree on somebody else's property that you honestly believe is dead, dying, diseased, or leaning at your house, put it in writing. Today, while it is still standing, take photographs first. The dead limbs, the lean, the split in the trunk, the fungus at the base, the bare crown in July. Then one wide shot with the tree and your house in frame, so nobody has to take your word for how close it is. Your phone stamps the date, and that stamp is the entire point. Then, write your neighbor a short, friendly, boring letter. Not a threat, not a lawyer letter. You are not picking a fight, you are creating a date. Say the tree does not look healthy, say what you have noticed, and ask him to have somebody look at it. Send it so a record exists. Certified mail is the clean version. Email works. A text works. A conversation over the fence does not, because it does not exist anywhere, and you cannot hand it to anybody. Keep your copy where you keep your policy. Do that, and if that tree ever comes over, you are not standing in your driveway swearing everybody knew. You are handing an adjuster a dated document that goes straight to the one element the whole liability question turns on. You have moved that tree, on paper, out of active nature and into new or should have known. And here is the quiet part. If your neighbor gets that letter and takes the tree down, you win bigger than you would have won the claim. Nothing hits your roof, nobody pays a deductible, and the two of you are still speaking. I will be honest with you. In 30 years, I think that is the single highest value free thing an American homeowner can do that almost nobody ever does. A few photographs and a stamp standing between you and a roof. None of this is legal or insurance advice. I am a retired adjuster telling you how these files actually move. Your policy and your state have the final word, and the only document that governs you is the one with your name on it. Go read it. If you've ever had a claim denied and never understood why, tell me what happened down in the comments. I read them, and your story might be the next video. That's the one I wanted you to have. Do it before you need it, because the day you need it is the day it's too late to start. I'll see you on the next one.